Okay. Gotta echo. Well, welcome everybody to the Thursday, November 16th, 2023 Windsor Unified School District regular board meeting. It's great to have you here. We have come out of closed session, and thank you very much. We had a vigorous hour plus a few minutes. Starting at item 6.1, a roll call, please. Ms. Cox.
Bill Adams. Here. Stephanie Mott. Here. Paul Cagorno. Here. Rich Carnation. Here. Student board members Meadow Graves and Kai Arce. Here.
And Trustee Lopez had let us know that she has a prior commitment and so has an excused absence for today. Item 2.2, the flag salute. Trustee Paul.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Report out of closed session. Superintendent Decker.
We have no report out of closed session.
Okay, thank you very much. Adjustments to the agenda. I am aware that we are going to table for this month item 5.3. That was an updated board policies recommended by the FMP process consultants to a future board meeting. District staff or trustees, any other adjustments to the agenda that we might have? No?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, seeing none, so we will, when I say we're at 5.3, someone remind me that we're not. Okay, now we'll go to item 3.2, public comment on non-agenda items. This is the opportunity for any member of the public to comment on items within the jurisdiction of the school district for up to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we will close public comment. Thank you very much. Now item 3.3, my colleagues to my left, student board members Kai Arce and Meadow Graves. You are up.
I believe so. Hopefully. Okay, there we go. All right, so I want to start off by talking about some of the performances we had over the last month or so since our last meeting. So we had an orchestra, jazz band, and band performance, which was amazing. I was lucky enough to attend. They had great performances, solos from a few people. Great, fun night. Also, our play, Macbeth, I was lucky enough as well. Me and Meadow both went. It was an amazing production. We had great energy, a lot of fun. And then also, I want to give a shout out to our volleyball team for making it very far, very far. It was the same night as the orchestra performance, and it was sad watching them come out as we lost, but we did great this year. And also our football team, again, continuing to do great. And we have another game tomorrow, actually. Sorry, next slide, please. Thank you.
Okay, so what's going on? This is mostly just North Bay Met focused, but on the left, the top picture is from Maloney Apple Orchard, where the kids got to go on a farms trip. Farms is a program where kids go to various agricultural areas around Sonoma County and a couple other counties. And on the bottom, they got to make apple tarts out of apples they picked from the orchard. In the middle are some pictures of a couple students from our LTIs, which are going fantastic. Almost every student at our school is enrolled in an LTI right now.
Just say what that is, please.
An LTI is a learning through interest, which is an internship that the kids get to go to on Tuesday or Thursday, where they are off campus doing a hands-on activity or like program. The top one is Israel Camacho. He does plumbing with Mitskes or MSI. And the bottom is Abby Lenny, and she does equine vet. Both of these students are going to pursue a career in what they are now doing, and they did not beforehand know before they started their LTI. And then on the right is session. Every advisory at our school went to session in the last couple of weeks, which is something that Jeremiah helped us do. Jeremiah is one of the staff at North Bay Met. His last name starts with a K. I would pronounce it, but I would totally butcher it. And the students, it just allowed them to all engage with one another, but in a non-classroom setting. It was extremely supportive, and it just allowed them to get active, but with their body and mind. And I heard nothing but positive reviews from everyone who went.
I know you all have been conducting a survey and have some other sort of things that are underway that you're working on.
Yeah.
Could you share a little bit about what some of those longer term projects are that you're working on during this year?
Yeah, so we're currently working on interviewing individual students at every one of our school locations. The start of this was our seeing that the involvement with the community, the feeling on our Youth Truth survey about involvement, right, and connection with your community in the student's perspective was not very high, or it's not as high as we would like it to be. So to identify this issue, we're going out and we've scheduled interviews with students of a wide range of different academic levels, grade levels, different abilities, right, and different backgrounds. So our goal is to survey as many students in a wide enough strata as we can to make actionable data so that we can actually understand what's happening. I don't know if you have more to.
We are going to be calling these empathy interviews, and we are working closely with Jeremy on this. And so Kai and I may not always be the one presenting the information we get. He may put it in his superintendent report. That is most likely what's going to happen, as it is data from the district itself. But I will be working with the lower grade levels, and Kai will be working more so with the higher grade levels, except for Windsor Oaks and North Bay Met, as I will be working with those students because I have somewhat established a community with them. And Kai will be working with the middle school grades, and later on in the year working with understanding if they feel ready for high school, and early high school grade levels feeling if they were prepared for high school and how they can feel a community as entering high school.
Yeah, and just one more thing to add, we have interviews scheduled and set up for all of next month, and then we will be conducting interviews again at the end of the year, either at the end of year or again two more times throughout the year, just to check up with these same students again to see how our policies are affecting the students.
One other point, I feel like I'm doing the TV interview here. I understand, because I've heard from several principals, that you've also exercised the initiative and sat down with the principals at the various sites. Talk to us a little bit about that and how that went and what the intent of that was.
We wanted to,
No, go ahead.
we wanted to get acquainted with the principals at the schools we will be working with. And as we don't have the best understanding of what goes on with those schools because we're both out of district transfers, and the staff at that school will know their students much better than we as high schoolers do, we wanted them to help us pick the students and them to know, they would best know what represents a variety of students and what kind of student would help represent most of the district, but in that small sample from their school. And also so that they knew what was going on in their school when we were there.
Yeah, and also the reality is as high school students, we're not, and as trustees, usually we're mainly focused on the high school because that's where we are. But our goal this year is to really address the younger grades and really understand what's happening there in a way that we haven't before, and really identify the issues that people are facing, because if we can address it when they're younger, we can have more successful times in high school.
I have one thing to add, if I may.
Please.
We will also be interviewing 1 to 2 staff members at each school, one per grade level, and then if comfortable, a special ed or a TA per staff member per site.
Yeah, and sorry to keep adding more things, but the principals at each site have been very welcoming and very accommodating. We just recently were making sure, getting everything on, and they're all quick to respond. Everybody's doing amazing. And I just want to thank all the principals for that. And Decker for setting everything up and, helping us in any way that he can.
So thank you very much. I was aware you were doing that, and I wanted you to have the opportunity. It's a breadth and scope of effort that we have not seen, and maybe because there's two of you, you've doubled down. I would also encourage, and I have not talked to my fellow trustees about this, but it may be very valuable as part of that overall effort to talk to trustees and, Jen Cox, who really knows what's happening in the DO, and everyone who sits up here in the district office, because our perspective may or may not be in alignment or even overlapping with the constituencies that we're serving. We spent some time talking about that as part of the superintendent's evaluation in closed session. So I would just throw that out there to encourage you to do that if you think that might be valuable for the information you're gathering.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much. Trustees, any comments back to our amazing colleagues here to my left?
I would just say that I know it's sometimes an awkward position because sometimes you're a student in the school, but now you're a student trustee. So you get kind of stuck in the middle. Is it Mr. Decker or is it Jeremy or which one is it? And then sometimes you get stuck and go, oh, it's just Decker. But actually, no, it's either one or the other. But I'm not sure which way. You and Jeremy later, you can thumbs or what do you call it, Rochambeau, or y'all figure out what you guys feel most comfortable with. But he'll give you permission.
Thank you. Okay. All in? Okay, all right. Thank you all very much. Really appreciate your effort and enthusiasm for what you're doing.
And that was my trustee report as well.
I'm going to mark you
Just
as
skipping ahead.
done on that.
Yep.
Thank you. Jeremy Decker, Superintendent. I'll read all three words in front of you. If you give us, please, your superintendent report in 3.4.
So I'll dovetail on what they said. So when I was talking about they asked me what they could do, right? How they could work with the district. And I said, well, we're really looking at getting data from kids on their connectedness, their students on their connectedness. And I said, they're going to talk to you more than they're going to talk to an adult. So if you guys conducted the empathy interviews, you might get more real data than we'll get. And to their credit, they were in, and it's a lot of work. I'm asking them to do a lot. And I know it's overwhelming, but they were all in. So I'm excited about the work you're going to do. I appreciate it. And I think we'll get better results because of what they're doing. I'd like to say thank you to Jeff, WDEA. We've got a settlement. It's been voted on. It's been passed. And just thankful that we could come to a resolution. So I'll let you speak more to that, Jeff, but just want to say thank you. CSEA, we also had some outstanding items that we had to address. Contract language, mostly job descriptions. We had a really productive meeting last week, 2 weeks ago, I'm not sure. It was very productive. We got through all of our items. I think that there's nothing outstanding left, and really proud of the work we did. So got through that. Pat Greco, we had a meeting where the lead secretaries from each site and department met with Pat Greco. And if you recall, Pat Greco has done a lot of the work to help us organize our pillars, our measures that matter, really to kind of organize the district to make sure we're focused on specific things. And as part of this kind of initiative, we're trying to build an in-house network for onboarding of our secretaries to make sure that the proper training and support's in place, because that's a key position. And if they don't understand the culture or what they have to do, it really impacts how people feel about our district. So they also talked about customer service, kind of making sure we have specific parameters and very consistent practices. So it's a good start. We've got more work to do, but proud of that work. I also want to talk about the CAPS network. So it's a California Principal Support Network. It's something we just started, and it's put on by a company called Solution Tree. Solution Tree is national, and they have a ton of different trainers that are really high level. In fact, the person who SCO is, it's underwritten by SCO, and the person who SCO is working with actually was a Windsor Unified employee in the late 90s. She was the director of curriculum and instruction. Her name is Cynthia Pilar. She was here many years ago, and she is now working for Solution Tree. She's been doing work for UC Davis with this program. And really what it is, it's looking at data and trying to figure out what to do with that data to make sure you can improve outcomes for kids. That's the work we're doing. And I think that it's been really well received. I know it's been really well received by our principals, by our staff as well. The staff that's there seems energized, really understanding the purpose of the meetings. So that's my report. Appreciate it.
Any questions, trustees, for Superintendent Decker on his report? Okay, thank you very much. 3.5, Staff Association reports. Already mentioned in dispatches. President Hardy.
Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the members of WDEA, we thank the board for approving the terms of the new collective bargaining agreement. 164 out of 170 voting members approved of this agreement. That's a 96.5% in favor of it. That's a big difference from the last time when the TA passed by less than 10 votes. So again, thank you very much. Thanks to Jeremy and helping push this through, and to Austin and his team working and crunching numbers to get that retro pay to all stakeholders in our November paycheck. As we move forward, we hope that providing students with the best and experienced teachers continues to be the #1 priority. Thank you very much. Looking forward, I know at the high school we have attendance matters. I'm not sure if it's at the middle school. Anyway, it's a blast that goes out in the bulletin. And so I sent out an email to all members in the union. And basically I'm asking them that it's important to keep accurate attendance records, not only for the safety and educational benefits for our students, but increasing enrollment helps the bottom line for everybody. I know it's a countywide, statewide problem, but I'm trying to push it out there like, come on, let's do what we can to help get these students here at school. I had a whole list, and of course I forgot everything today. So, but anyway, so with that, we all look forward to the Thanksgiving break and wish you all a restful break. At this time, I need to excuse myself and head home, take care of a post-op patient, but we'll be watching on TV. So again, thank you very much.
Before you step down, any comments back to Deb? I was not here, but I was watching on video. I was down in LA, and I would thank you, Jeff, for your leadership with the union too. These are business negotiations. They're not personal. And
Exactly.
I was pleased in the article, that was a Thursday, I think it was the 21st on Saturday, that as we, between then and the following Monday is when the arrangement was reached, that we were able to get it done.
Yes.
And, many other districts do their negotiations because there's not a relationship, and it happens in the newspaper, which usually is not as effective at all.
Right.
And I thought that coverage was good. The quotes, your comments, Jeremy's comments echoed well what we're about in Windsor. And I appreciate that. And I did not know that the vote was 96%. And again, I think that goes to leadership and camaraderie and communication amongst the labor group. So
Yeah.
Thank you for everything you're doing.
Both again, thank you
Good
very
luck at
much.
home.
And have a good evening. Thank
Okay. Well, let's go to trustees' reports then, other than Rich Carnation, unless you want another bite at the apple, sir. Okay, Paul, we'll start at the end.
Okay, so it's been a somewhat busy month. I started it off at Brooks Elementary School with Pete and Stephanie and Bill, handing out the Employee of the Month awards, which I thought was very well done. They were really excited about the two that got the awards, but Bill or someone put me on the spot that I was going to have to speak, and I was like, "What? What am I going to say? I don't know anything." So I had shared with Bill earlier that there was a student that I had in 4th grade who is now in 11th grade, and my son is teaching him in Cloverdale for science. And he kept saying, "Well, is your dad coming? Is your dad going to come? Is your dad going to come?" So it's like, yeah, he's coming. So it was a great experience going into that sub, and I didn't follow up on it. That actually the kids they remembered me, and they remembered stuff that I couldn't even believe that I remembered. Remember that book that we read in 4th grade? Man, you made us write this epilogue at the end, and it was so great. And I was like, whoa. The point is not that I'm great. The point is that the impact that teachers have cannot be overstated. So I'll say it again, even publicly now, kudos to all those teachers out there. They're doing a fantastic job. So that was that. Little anecdote. Oh, yeah, I also I went to a We Foundation meeting. I don't know if you're aware of We Foundation. They're the Windsor Educational Foundation. They support they have a scholarship breakfast. As you know, I painfully got aware that it was a big fundraiser. Yeah, I made a big rookie mistake there. Cost me a little bit, but anyway, they do a lot of good work. Besides the scholarship, they do a Project Hero, which I'm hoping we can communicate that a little better to some of the sites that there's been a little disconnect, they said on that. And then they have a Mentor Me program where they pair up a high school senior with a fifth grader. And I've gone on the website, they have just really cute videos there. I mean, I think it's a really good program. They said they're up from I think 11 last year to 17 this year. And good news is they're not paying them anymore. It's part of their senior project. They're getting hours for it. So that's, and they really want to do it. And it's, so that was really great. It's good information there. Met with Brian a couple times on, well, I'll save that for later when we go over the CASP results. But yeah, that's my report.
You can go after Stephanie.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, this month, I'll piggyback off of what Paul started with, which was staff appreciation. We were at Brooks this month, and we've now been to Windsor Middle School, Windsor High School, Cali, and North Bay Met. So that only leaves Maddie, I believe, that we haven't been to, and I think we'll be hearing more about that later in this meeting, maybe right after this. So that's exciting. That's been a fun thing to do this year, and I think also just really positive, and I hope positive modeling the overall type of positive recognition that we want to have at the school sites, not just for staff, but also for students. I think it's about showing what we value. So that's been great. I was really glad to hear about the customer service oriented kind of front of office training and culture building, because I think that's really important. I think it's very exciting. And then I wanted to also add that the week after Thanksgiving, we are going to the California School Board Association conference as a governance team. I think almost all of us are able to go, including our student board members. So we'll be able to spend some time together and really connect. And I have to say that we slay at CSBA. Like, as a board, we really take advantage of it. We go to the sessions, we're thoughtful about, like, we really do approach it strategically, as, you know, because people are sending us there. And I think we take it really seriously that we're having the opportunity. And we've actually had some initiatives in our district come out of that conference. So I'm excited for our new Paul's first time, and you and our student board members being able to do that with you. So I think we're excited to do that together.
Great. Go ahead, Rich.
Just really quickly, Paul, I want to make sure that you understand the full we effect. So you can go and you can get weed, which you did.
Yes,
right?
yes.
But then, and I'm gonna let President,
I got the mute button right
I'm
here.
gonna let
You
President
did-
Adams explain.
Ted,
to
work with
you
me here.
That you can also not go if you can't make it, which I didn't, and you can find that you were there vicarious. We has a vicarious component that President Adams is familiar with, and he will vicariously help you attend. So don't think that, it's not like winning a lottery. You don't have to be there to be a winner.
So I'm going to drown him out a little. This is an event
And that's it.
that raises money for our graduating seniors from North Bay Met and Windsor High School. It goes directly to scholarships for them. So that's what we're talking about. It all goes to a good cause. But yes, we've all been on the hook for donations.
Thank you. Wow. Yeah, it's good to be back. Like I said, I was down when I shared with Jeff Hardy. I was down watching from the airport coming back. I think it was October 19th. Thank you for mentioning CSBA. I shared with Paul when we were walking over, because we're talking a little bit about the logistics, one of the cool things is there is an ice cream social at the end of the student trustee breakout session. So Jen will go down, no? Well, there's going to be. If not, we're going to go out and get ice cream anyway. So we walk over and we'll make a point of coming over and seeing you with your peers. And I think, don't be shy sharing some of the things and, whether you feel empowered or overburdened, because you will find a lot of like-minded people. Many boards do not have, and if they have, do not give a voice to their student board members, and we are not those. So thank you very much for doing that. Yeah, wow. With that, absent any other updates, we will go then to the approval of the minutes from October 19th, 2023. I would entertain a motion. I will abstain from that since I was not at the meeting, Jen. So motion and a second from our board members.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Paul. All those in favor are preferential voting trustees to my left. We're on the minutes from October 19th. What say you?
Aye.
Aye, and the rest? Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
We'll go 3-0-1-1-2.
Bill, I just have a question.
2-3-0-1-1.
So is it possible, only because when I was going through the minutes, at first I had to go like, wait a minute, why are we, and I looked at one topic and we were like, it was 2 and 3. And I'm like, no one voted against this. And so anyhow.
Somebody would be absent.
No, I get it. I think that for people in the public, the way normally people look at how votes go, we might want to list that, even though we might go preferential first, we might want to go list it like board members, like it was 4, 1, 0, and then -2, and put the preferential, even though they vote first, but maybe list it last on the paper, because otherwise it looked like, and one particular one, I don't remember what it was, it looked like the vote was 2 and 4 on one issue, and I don't remember exactly what it
Do you
was.
understand that? Okay,
And that's
there
why
was
I was-
no opposition from the
that
colleagues
make
to my
sense?
left. Okay, good,
Makes
thank
total
you.
sense.
Did you
Yeah.
understand what you would like to do, Jen? Okay, super.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rich, for that clarification. 3.8, as referred to, employee recognitions from HR Director Pete Sullivan.
Good evening. Thank you. So we're going to get our vegetables before our dessert tonight. So I'll just cover the basics just because it was brought up. So we will be visiting with Maddie on December 13th. That is their staff meeting. So that's out for Jen. And next month, we are going to be recognizing at large. So we're going to be recognizing technology department, maintenance department, the transportation department, and maybe some folks from Brian's division. I'm going to start with the classified staff appreciation. Mil gracias, Maria Tamayo. Thank you, Maria, for the exemplary work you do at Maddie Washburn. Your commitment to going above and beyond your daily work does not go unnoticed, and it is with great pleasure that I recognize you for your positive impact at Maddie. You always seek to create an atmosphere that our students, staff, and visitors feel safe and welcome in. From the moment I arrived at Maddie, it became evident that you bring a level of professionalism, enthusiasm, and dutifulness that improves and beautifies our campus every day. Your work ethic and attention to detail have maintained the cleanliness and orderliness of our facilities while setting a standard of excellence for our campus. What truly sets you apart is your willingness to always go the extra mile. Whether it's arriving early to ensure classrooms are ready for teachers and students, staying late to ensure special events run smoothly, or responding to real-time needs on our campus, your commitment to the well-being of our school is inspiring. You're so much more than a custodian. You're a valued member of our team. On behalf of the entire school community, I want to thank you for your exceptional service, your hard work, positive attitude, and commitment to maintaining a clean and welcoming environment. You make a huge difference, and we can't imagine Maddie without you. Thank you, Maria. And I can say that Maddie stole that, Maria, from us when I was at the high school, and I was not happy about it. She's phenomenal. Fantastic. Certificated staff. This is going to Jennifer Cameron. It is with the deepest appreciation that I acknowledge Jennifer Cameron for the positive impact that she makes on a daily basis at Maddie Washburn. As our beloved reading intervention teacher, she demonstrates dedication and commitment to fostering a love for reading among our students. Jennifer has the amazing ability to connect with students, create a supportive and engaging learning environment, and promote academic growth. Students respond positively to her as she seeks to build their confidence in their own literacy skills and academic progress. She also supports their families as they navigate how to help their students at home, and she's always willing to offer suggestions or guidance. Her passion for researching, innovating teaching methods, and best practices for literacy and instruction have not only helped struggling readers make progress, but have positively impacted countless teachers and classrooms. Through the course of her daily work, Jennifer actively collaborates with her colleagues and is a willing thought partner in various capacities. She has been an active member of the site leadership team, CST, SST teams, MTSS, Guiding Coalition, and even acting as Maddie's teacher in charge. She is an invaluable team player who is always willing to share knowledge, support others, and serve the needs of students and fellow staff. For all of her amazing contributions to Maddie Washburn School and community, please join me in congratulating Jennifer Cameron on this well-deserved recognition. Maddie is truly fortunate to have you on our team, and I look forward to continued partnership and her presence in our school for years to come. Jennifer Cameron.
Thank you, Pete. What time is the staff meeting at Maddie on the 13th?
1:30.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, what a break that. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we'll go to item 4, consent action items. In the absence of Vice President Lopez, I will do these. I would make a motion to approve as written consent action items 4.1 through 4.18, unless there is a request to pull one of them for a more regular calendar discussion. I have a couple of comments that I'll make if we could get a second to my motion for the consent action items.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I did not ask, I'm sorry, thank you, Rich. Anyone have any recusals that they need to make related to any of these? Okay. With that, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions to staff on consent action items 4.1 to 4.18? Jeremy, I wanted, could you, just for the public, talk a little bit, after I have a question or comment on something else, on the governance calendar? You and I had talked about what sort of the emphasis was on that. We have it, and I imagine it'll pass without any comment. But I noticed there is adjustments for the CSEA, that's the California School Employees Association, our classified staff members. There's the closing salary negotiations and the increase that President Hardy mentioned regarding WDEA, the Windsor District Educators Association, are certificated. I did want to make the point to acknowledge, and I'm sorry that Mr. Hardy isn't here. In the article that was in the Press Democrat on the 21st, there was a recognition by labor and management that at that point, even before the salary in the last cycle, that our total compensation package for our employees was the highest amongst our comparator districts. I am pleased to report that I confirmed before we started the meeting that with the contract and CSEA was pulled up, given some of the more advantageous.
They will be. They will be. Still working
right?
through that.
So that we continue that tradition now for the next 2 years, that our compensation package with all in is the highest amongst our comparator district. And I think that speaks volumes to the DO staff that is here, to the labor presidents and representatives, and to the patience and persistence of our classified and certificated staff. So thank you all very much for that. It's good to get that out of the way and make that recognition and demonstrate our priorities with our resources. With that, perhaps if you could just give us a few words on the governance calendar on 4.18, and if any other trustees have any questions or comments.
Absolutely. So the major reason that this is needed to be updated is because we've shifted to focus on our scorecards. And we talked a lot as a team, as a cabinet, in what the cadence should look like, because there needs to be a process to update the board. Because ultimately, something that we haven't really had in place, we present our data, but we don't necessarily present updates on our progress within the year on how we're doing with our strategies that we're employing to improve our data. So we spend a considerable amount of time planning out the entire year for how these progress updates should go. And it's tricky because we're doing it we're doing this the first year and we're finding that we might be a month off. For instance, when I do my report, initially I plan to have a bunch of data to give you. I don't have all of it because a lot of my data is really coming from the sites, and all of our scores for RenStar just came in today, right? So we're still trying to figure out the cadence, but that was the impetus for really updating this governance calendar, was to make sure that we're focused on the correct things. Of course, there's some things that are in here. You got to have your developer fees approved in October. I mean, there's a bunch of things that have stayed the same, but that was a big one. Another one that is different, you guys have never done an approval of course guide at the high school. But I know there's an interest to talk about the courses that are offered. And so we've built that in to November. Now, you don't see it right now, right? Because it's the first year. So this is our calendar that we're going to use moving forward. Okay, that hopefully over the next couple of years, and we might modify it. But there have been a few things built in that I know have been interests of the board, and that's one of them. That way, if you can go through and you can see that what's being projected to be offered at the high school, you can comment and ultimately approve this course guide, and then we can move forward effectively in enrolling students into these courses. Okay? You got a question, Rich?
I do. My question is, if we're doing that in November, shouldn't we maybe do that either at like April, May, June for the following year?
No,
Because if we're doing it in November, we're already in the middle of it.
no, it's for the following year.
Okay, so.
We have to do it early, and this is based on Brian's recommendation to me and how the high school works.
We're good then. So that November is for the following
Correct.
year. Okay,
Yep.
we're good.
It's getting ahead so they can do all their processes.
Got it.
I had it later as well, and Brian said that's not going to work. So
Got
that's
that.
where
So March, April's not enough time.
Correct.
To get, okay, cool.
But anyway, and if you notice down at the bottom, I have a study session calendar. And I've put some things on there, again, built around the scorecards, because really I want you guys to hold us accountable. All right, if we say we're going to do something and we think it's going to improve outcomes for kids, then I think we need to talk about it. And that's the whole intention behind this governance calendar. You can see we have administrative retreats built in where we're going to get together. We're going to talk about our progress. And I think this calendar provides a level of accountability that hasn't been in place before in Windsor. And, Brian and I are going to tell you all the time, hold us accountable. That's why we're here. We should be doing our jobs, and our jobs are to improve student outcomes. So hopefully this helps set us up so that you can monitor our progress better. That was the intent.
Great. And thank you. Now you know why I asked him to explain it, because we've been talking about it as he was getting with the cabinet about this phasing and the cadence and having the data come when the data is most useful, and any feedback, if we have to hear it, is given at a time that it's useful for them to implement, right? And again, a long time coming, and took a long time, I think, to look at our processes to find out it's not the sexiest item on there, but it's just essential for the methodology to be on top of what we're doing and leaning forward. So thank you for the time on that. Any other questions, comments by any board members on the consent item? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Looking to my left, preferential board members, how say you? To approve the consent action items 4.1 to 4.18?
Yes?
Well, they're like this,
Yes.
some tepid yeses over there. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, so let me see if I get this right. 4012 as reported under the Carnation?
Oh, under the Carnation.
Under the Carnation
System,
model.
that's right.
Okay, they vote first, but okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. Now we'll move into our discussion action items of number 5. Number 5.1, consideration of approval of resolution 2024-09 to certify the application to CDE, the California Department of Education, for the purpose of providing childcare and development services for 2024-2025.
Good evening. This is kind of just a routine approval. We do have Jessica Borland here if you have any questions for this.
Okay. Any questions or comments by my fellow trustees on 5.1 and the resolution? Any public comment on this matter? Jessica, anything you'd like to add and help us with? No? Okay. I'm just trying to think how we can get you here to 7 o'clock, but okay. All right. But with that, then we'll bring it back to the board. This is a roll call as a resolution. Let's get the designation, although for resolutions, you all are not listed, but let's go ahead and do the roll call. Jennifer Cox.
Did we get a motion and a second?
Oh, how about a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion.
One,
I'll second.
1, 2. So Stephanie and Paul, thank you very much. Jen, I've been gone.
Bill Adams? Bill Adams?
Yes.
Stephanie Ahmad?
Yes.
Paul Cagorno?
Yes.
Rich Carnation?
Yes.
Okay, that'll be 401. Thank you very much. Item 5.2, consideration of approval of resolution 2024-10, the total base bid for the Cali-Calmeca language transitional kinder upgrades lease-back increment 2 pending DSA approval. That's why Austin stayed away, that's the longest acronym today.
And I'll do a lead in. Brian will present.
Yes, hello, Brian. Glad you guys got in.
Here's what I will say. So this came in over budget, over what we initially intended. Having said that, we do have the funds in our developer fees to pay for this, as well as we have a credit back of $260,000, I believe, from the Cali building that we will apply to this project. And that's on top of, there was a lack of kind of play space for students. And so we did add kind of artificial turf that is, I don't know how many feet, Brian, maybe 70, 80 feet or so.
Can't remember off the top. It was
It's a significant area. It'll allow our kids to run around. So there was actually about a $360,000 savings. We applied roughly and correct me if I'm wrong, but roughly $100,000 to this turf project for the kids to run around. And then the $260,000 will be applied to the TK buildings, and then we'll get the rest from developer fees. So luckily we had a major developer fee project come in that will allow us to afford this project, even though it came in 1.7 million over.
Yeah, roughly around there. One thing to add on the two-story construction, we also added an additional shade structure. So on top of all of that, we still had credit coming back to the district.
And we should talk about JP and what he's committed to us. I think
Correct.
it's
Yeah, we're installing a new PC or pre-check building that Arts has available. So we went away from that modular buildings that we've done in the past, and this will be a stick-built building. So it's a lot sturdier and will be a higher quality product at the end of the day. So having said that, the contractor on the project is donating the shade structure on the new TK project we're doing. So that helps save around $125,000 on the project.
and I can't understate that. That comes out of his profit, right? That's just an act of goodwill because it came in over. He doesn't have to do that. So I think that we need to acknowledge him publicly, that Arts and JP Van Zee is really doing a solid for the district.
Correct, yeah. And on top of that, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So yeah, we met with the site a handful of times. We got Jessica staff's input. We went back to them with the revisions, made sure we incorporated everything into the drawings. And we feel like at the end of the day, everyone should be happy once the project is complete. We are trying to award this pending DSA approval. So currently we just got comments back at DSA. We're working on responding to those as quickly as possible so we can begin the work before Christmas vacation. We're trying to get ahead of all this rainy weather we're about to see coming up.
And can I also add, a significant reason this came in over budget is, as always, ADA. And we have to do the concrete. You know where you enter into Cali, right on the south side of the admin building? We actually have to do all the concrete from there all the way over to the TK.
Yeah, that added roughly about 7,000 square feet of site work. So I think that equated to about like $800,000. Yeah, so a lot of additional work. Yeah,
that was not anticipated.
One thing, also by that play area, we have to do a retaining wall because the grades are so much higher from the sidewalk. So that also had some additional structural work that we weren't accounting for.
Okay, any comments or questions from the trustees? Yes, Rich?
The only comment would be that oftentimes we say thank yous and stuff like that, but I'm not good at remembering certain things, but hopefully we can remember that shade structure that's getting donated. We should put some kind of signage
Happy to
there
do that.
that will last, that when kids go through, they just see, because one of the things that is helpful for kids to learn about gratitude and being grateful and thankful is when they see things that remind them that somebody did something nice for them. And it just kind of, because, you know, a lot of times if you don't know somebody did something nice for you, you don't know it. So I think it's like what we're doing with the teachers now and these kind of recognitions. Same thing when people do things that are nice for the district. If there are, I don't know, like plaque, but something that would be something that we could put to, that's something permanent, that looks nice, that's commensurate with a donation of that sort of a thing. So that way every group of kids that comes through from then on out will see that somebody did something nice. So that way they're able to enjoy their day a little bit better. I think that'd be a good thing for us to do.
I think it also shows a lot that goes towards the teamwork. Like for the 2-story construction, we had a really collaborative team, and we were able to make that project come in on schedule and under budget. So
Significantly under budget.
yeah, definitely. So moving forward, we're working together with the same team on this one, and I think we'll have an excellent project at the end of the day.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Okay, hang on just a second. Any comments or questions from the audience, from the public? Okay, hold what you got. We'll bring that back to the board then. I would entertain a motion and a second for the approval of Resolution 2024-10 as listed in the agenda packet.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Rich.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. We have a motion and a second. Jen?
Bill Adams.
Yes.
Stephanie Ahmad.
Yes.
Paul Gagorno.
Yes.
Rich Carnation.
Yes.
Okay, that will pass on a 401. Thank you very much for the report. Appreciate your good work. Okay, we have pulled 5.3 to a future meeting date, so we will go on to 5.4. Consideration of approval of Resolution 2024-11, approving the issuance and sale of general obligation refunding bonds.
And I'm going to do my best job here.
Yes, sir.
So I understand this generally. We have a bond that passed years ago, 2008. Okay, so there's outstanding money that basically taxpayers are paying. When you have favorable interest rates, you refinance those bonds so that you can save our taxpayers money. You don't do it unless it's a significant amount of money. We were approached by ISM advisors to say, hey, you guys should think about doing this because you can save your community dollars. So this will be the first step to authorize us to engage in essentially refinancing those bonds so that we can save taxpayers money. That's the extent of my knowledge here, but this is the first step to do so.
And we have, when favorable economic conditions have come up, we have done this in the past.
Yes.
I don't know that it reduces the levy amount on the special tax middle portion of our property tax bills. I believe what it does is it curtails the payment duration, so you end up paying it sooner, but that's more than I know. I'm kind of making that last part up.
Generally, I've done this a couple of times, but generally we don't do this unless we can save $1 million.
Yeah.
So from usually the back end, so there's less years to pay. I don't think you're wrong.
Right, yeah, and it costs money to save money on the back end, but it's good fiscal policy, in my view. Any questions or comments to Austin Surrogate about this MBA program?
I hope not. I'm just kidding.
Okay, any comments from the public? Kai, you like high finance. Okay, good. That was like a $50 million bond. Okay. All right. Bringing it back to the board then, I would entertain a motion and a second for Resolution 2024-11.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. First by Paul and a second by Rich. Jen, roll call, please.
Bill Adams.
Yes.
Stephanie Ahmad.
Yes.
Paul Gagorno.
Yes.
Rich Carnation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. That will pass by 401. Now moving to item 5.5, consideration of discussion of the district scorecard, which was alluded to a little bit in the superintendent's report.
So really, this is a preface. This is a preview for what you're going to get next month, which I think is where we really dig our teeth or sink our teeth into. But I want to remind you of what the district scorecard is and what our goals were, because all of the sites built their scorecards based on this scorecard. I don't know. There you go. All right, I'll just have you do it. There's not many slides. Just a reminder, everything about this scorecard is built upon our pillars, which have been adopted as our board goals. I think that is significant because it aligns our focus with the board's focus and allows us to really do some good work. And if you'll remember, the first pillar is all students connected and thriving, and we have our support statements underneath. Second one, all staff connected and thriving. I think that has been more at the forefront than maybe in years past because of what's going on in our field and the lack of qualified candidates for many of our positions. It's important that we focus on our staff being connected and thriving. We need to have strong family, community, and school relationships, especially coming out of COVID. I think that our schools got closed off, and it's important to focus on this so people feel connected, our families and community feel connected to what we're doing in our schools. And obviously, this is always going to be something important. We need to have sound financial planning and decision-making. So if you go through, if the next slide, please. I'm going to break, oh, that's really small. I'm going to break this down by each pillar. And so there are certain measures that matter that I identified as most important for each pillar. So for all students connected and thriving, I identified 4. For youth truth, we focused on belonging and do you feel like a real part of your school community? If you look at our baseline data, I put 2 baseline datas in there, one from 21-22 and one from 22-23. You can see those aren't good scores. So the reason it's on here is because it needs to be a focus. The things that we scored well on, I didn't focus on. So this was an area I thought we had significant work to do. Our students should feel like they're a real part of our school community. And at least one and two should be saying yes to this. And right now we don't have that. We don't have those results, and that's concerning. So you'll see that our goal is 50%. The strategies that we put in there, adoption of SEL curriculum, social emotional learning curriculum, and standards for all grade levels. We want to maintain or increase our student-led clubs, include students in the planning of rallies and activities. We talk about this is part of what they're doing, right? These are our empathy interviews. What would make you feel like a real part of our school community? That's a question that they're going to focus on, that we discuss together. And then if you look, our leading measures, you could see empathy interviews with students, that's them, right? That was going to be me or one of my cabinet members or principals, but it makes more sense to be them. And then also doing pulse check surveys. And then if you look, the next 2 goals have to do with CASP, which is our state test. And look at the data. It's got to improve. So what we did with this, Brian is our lead, and he identified, really went down to the specific student and where we think that we can move students to be at or above grade level. So that goal is not just a random number. We looked down to the individual student to see who we felt we could move in 1 year. So we're hoping to go from, these are massive changes. You know, most districts, you put like 2% increase, right? 3% increase. That's not what we put. We've got a 14% increase that we're hoping for at the end of this year with math as district-wide. That would be massive for us, right? And that is, nobody does those kinds of goals. But when you really look and we get down to the student and we say, who can we move? That's what that number bore out. Same thing for language arts, 51% from 38. So big goals, even at those 51 and 40, that's still unacceptable, right? So we've got room to grow, but this is what we're pushing towards. There are a bunch of strategies in there. Many of those strategies are centered around net RenStar. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you look at the leading measures, RenStar is a leading measure. I would have loved to have had that data for you, our RenStar data. It just came in too late. It just came in today. So I got it. I couldn't embed all of it because it wasn't all the way in, but you'll get that from the principals. They'll dive into the full RenStar data and say how we're doing. And in some schools, we're making progress. In others, because I saw the data, we're not. So we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and figure out what we aren't doing to allow our students to move like we think they should. But again, next month you get in-depth analysis of those scores. This is one that I think is interesting. Oh, and it's, oh, Jen, you put this in, huh? You PDF'd this before, because I had some data in here at the end, and I can just speak to it. So college and career readiness, you look at our baseline, it's a 47%. The goal is 60%, and I'm gonna focus on one aspect of leading measures that I talked to Danielle about looking at. So administration reviews on-track student data every 6 weeks with counselors. We took our first step, this is new. Danielle looked at freshmen generally, okay? So if you're A to G, Generally, if you're A to G, you're going to be college and career ready, right? And we're shooting for 60%. Danielle looked at the D and the F rate for freshmen in the first grading period. And 45% of our students in the freshman level got a D or an F. If you have a D, you are not going to be A to G compliant. So essentially, we start off behind the 8 ball immediately to not hit. Now, there are other ways to be college and career ready, but let's just focus on A to G right now. Right now, for the first semester of a freshman's experience, only 55% of them are on track to become college and career ready, which isn't going to work. But we've never looked at that data like that. Because if you think about this, you start off with 100% of students on track to be college and career ready. But we have a gap that starts right away. So that was in my cycle 1. We'll look at cycle 2 to see how we short up. Now there's ways to get them back on track. We have grade validation in the summer. We have a number of different ways to bring this back up. But through this process, we're going to identify some of where our pain points are and then try to attack those pain points. And you guys can ask questions throughout if you'd like, or at the end, however you want to do it. Do you want to do it each one?
I think it may be easiest if we do it by pillar.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, so I think we're conversant with that. And again, from the 8 of us on the governance team, we spent the better part of half a day back in our summer goal planning session, including with the student trustees, going over these. So I think Stephanie has some questions and we can, take a deeper dive. Again, with the caution to my colleagues that we're going to get the disaggregated site principal reports, right? Which will also have the RenStar stuff, which will be helpful for us, that data. But go ahead, Stephanie.
And Stephanie, before you go, one of the things when I was building this, in my mind, I was going to have all of my own data. Remember this first year, right? But then I started to realize we're going to be double surveying people because principals are asking the same questions. So instead of me surveying, do you feel like we're a part of your school community? I'm trying to streamline that and just have it done once. So really you're going to get a lot of that data with the principals versus I initially anticipated I would be doing this.
Okay, so first I just want to recognize the process that went into creating this and kind of identifying how we want to measure things. I'm not sure if it's a comment or a question, so we'll see how it comes out. But on the first cell on all students connected and thriving, the first measures that matter, the youth truth belonging and the strategies. I'm just wondering if there was any conversation about, because the strategies for kind of how we think students are going to feel like they belong. I think there are some assumptions there that
100%.
that they're going to feel like they belong if they're getting social emotional learning, if they're participating in clubs, if they're participating in rallies and activities. And I'm wondering if we thought about also putting in some strategies or measurements around test scores and grades, because I think kids ultimately, they want to learn at school. Like they actually want to succeed. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we can build that in there too, where we kind of consider that and how students feel, because I think there's going to be a correlation between test score and grade performance and feeling like they belong. And I'm curious, and if we can disaggregate, I don't think we can I don't think we have identifying data from the Youth Truth Survey to connect that with the student.
Not the specific student, but we do with the different demographics of our student.
So I think we can draw some inferences and from that. So I think that I'm curious about that, because I think all of the things that are listed here are bonuses, but I think that even from a very young age, kids want to be successful.
Yeah, and I think you bring up good points, Stephanie. So I think with the strategies, the idea is these are the strategies, and then what Kai and Meadow are going to do is talk about this.
Yeah,
and say, are these what make you feel connected?
Right, and I think that's great what you're doing. The empathy interviews, thank you for doing that. I think it's going to be fantastic. So I think we need to do that. It's more just like maybe, and you already have these things here. You have RenStar, but I think grades, I don't see that. And it is a data point. It's a data point that affects our students in a very real way, definitely starting in 9th grade and really like in middle school. They're really getting impacted by that. I would like to see it somewhere in here, and maybe you have a reason for not including it. So,
No, it just wasn't a
Just-
direct correlation in my mind when I built this,
Yeah.
but I hear what you're saying.
so I think most of it's already here, but I'm just thinking about it in the context of how students decide how they feel.
Understood.
Okay, hey, hang on before Meta. Paul, I know you have some comments you want to make. I'm not sure where you want to make them in the report. It doesn't have to be now.
Brian is going to do a deeper dive into test scores.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. Thank you.
to do with the CAPS.
Okay. I know Meadow has a comment. I want to make a comment to follow on what Stephanie said. So Meadow, go ahead. Thank you for,
This is also off of what Stephanie says.
okay.
I really appreciate what you're saying because Kai and I were also thinking the same thing. And so we do have questions focused on like, do you feel as if you have the right support systems to succeed in school? And do you feel like you are asking for the right kind of help? And do you feel like you are learning the material and you have the right material to learn and succeed and be prepared? And like, are you learning skills that transfer to real life? Because those are things that some kids, I've noticed a pattern, don't want to learn if they don't think it means things. So we want to learn what the kids are thinking all around the district. Yeah, so I really appreciate your input on that.
Wow. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to pull they didn't talk about the empathy interviews because I knew that that was a core component. And I will phrase what Stephanie said slightly different. It's looking at the two CAS elements, math and ELA, and the readiness, and to kind of take those are not silos, right? Those have, when you reflected the 45% Ds and F for 9th graders, to go back to that first one and say, are you doing well in school? Do you do school good? Is school doing well by you, right? And I think that's a very important component about, peeling back that onion on those answers when we went from, particularly at the elementary schools, that 55% last year and 29% this year, almost a 50% drop of elementary school kids. You don't know how many, we can get the data of how many responded and we don't know if they're the same ones, but that's dramatic, right? And you wonder, well, they're not reading at grade level. Well, that's because 2/3 of them don't feel connected at school. I mean, that's a gross overstatement. But thank you for that point, because I think tying this piece together as, from the first pillar, our product, our outcome here for what we do as the advocates for our 5,000, TK to 12 students is, are they doing well?
Yes.
Are we getting, and they can do better. And we're trying to figure out why that is. And so thank you very much for that. Any other comments at this point? Because we can. Okay, cool. Let's go then to the next one. Thank you.
So this is, pick two goals here. The sites picked one. So if you look, it is extremely important that that staff feel like they have a voice to me, because the first couple of years where our data was lowest is staff didn't feel like they had a voice. So the measure that was chosen was, I feel that others in my organization connect with me in an honest two-way communication. We do great in one-way communication. We have generally. We tell people what's going on well, but we haven't had very good cascading communication. We have to go down, but not back up. So we're trying to put in the proper processes to make sure we're receiving the information that is needed so we can run the district better. So you look at the new LCAP process, and really that just ties into the leadership team and professional development. So we've redesigned our leadership teams. I would say for many years, and just depends on the site, but it's been more information dissemination. Those leadership teams are now they're being trained to be more a part of the decision-making process. And we really believe in shared decision-making. And I'm going to speak for Brian and myself. This is a core belief of ours, and we work closely on this. And we don't believe that a principal can be effective if they're leading alone at any level. So we're really trying to remodel this process to make sure that our teachers feel empowered to have a voice. And really, when they have a recommendation that is taken seriously. The CAPS work that I talked about earlier in my superintendent's report is a major component of this. And we're being trained on how to work together and be effective so student outcomes can improve. And rounding is something we've talked about for many years. This is just a process for getting information. And our principals, we still have work to do here, but it is a strategy and a leading measure that we're measuring, where we go and interview our direct reports and we make sure that we're kind of collating the data to see some common themes and make sure that we attack those themes. And then if you look at the next one, my school creates a positive work environment. This was identified because we had some drops from 21-22, and we're doing this. We did this today, right, Pete? We celebrated and recognized our staff. We did it. We're doing that program that we talked about, but we're also doing this through rounding. You know, I've got a pile of letters on my desk right now where certain employees have been identified as doing really good work, going above and beyond. So I write letters, I send them home to them so that they just know that their good work doesn't go unnoticed. And we've trained every single administrator in rounding. Some do more than others, and we're still trying to make it part of our culture for all administrators to really focus on this and make sure we're rewarding, you know, the behavior that we want to, you know, reward, acknowledge. But it's definitely a focus of the district. Any questions on this? And there are more measures that matter that were identified, but these were the two that I pulled out from the overall measures to really focus on.
I would just, because we chit chat up here at the dais, I was just talking to Meadow and looking at that youth truths culture, and that's the staff feedback on that.
Correct.
Okay, that there's increases at the middle and secondary sites, and yet a drop from 79 to 62%. And I asked, you know, are you including staff? And they are including some staff conversations when they go out for the empathy interviews. And Meadow shared, and I hadn't thought about this, there's quite a bit more turnover at the elementary school levels, generally, perhaps. But it's curious to me because our elementary students and our elementary staff had a dip in the response in the 23-24 school year, or the 22-23, I'm sorry, which is out of sync with the upper half of our grades. And just, it seems to be a thing that is, and coming up to why that is, I think will be helpful for us all to grapple with. So thank you. Okay, next one.
So this is our strong family, community, and school relationships. This is obviously a major focus for me, has been since I've been here. The number of interdistrict transfers in versus out, and I'm not using Cali or North Bay Met. They're a different program. But if you look in 22-23, we didn't have this data because we didn't have it broken out in 21-22. But in 22-23, our net was minus 70. So you had more students transferring to, let's say, a West Side, Cardinal Newman, or whatever it may be. And we estimate our private schools, we don't know for certain, but we had more students transferring out than in. There's no way I was going to make a goal to have a negative there. So my goal was a plus 10. That would have been an 80 student difference, which is pretty major. If you look at where we're at right now, and I'll go through, you know, the strategies, we just did them, right? We're talking marketing. We're, you know, improving our test scores would allow us to really market that we are a good place for academics. So those are some strategies and leading measures. We have those, but really what I want to focus on is cycle one. So right now we're at minus 24. It's not a plus 10, but it's an improvement. So, you know, so what is that, a 46 student improvement from last year in terms of where we're at? So we're getting closer to being more of a destination where we're not losing our students. And as you guys know already, I'll just say it for the public, for those millions of people watching at home, we lose our students in the elementary level. Why that is, there are many reasons that it could be. We know we've talked about the model of our schools. We don't have TK6 or TK5 schools, but we also have to acknowledge that our scores are not where we want them to be. And that's where we lose the majority of our students, and we gain them back in high school and even in middle school. We actually get a large portion of students who come back to us from other districts in 6th grade, but many in 7th grade. And then we have another bump in high school. So anyway, we're doing deep dives into this. This is a major focus for us, and it impacts our budget, as you guys all know. And this is something that has come out from many of my meetings. I have a parent advisory committee, and they've talked a lot about, you know, receiving feedback. They don't want to hear it necessarily from me. They don't want to hear it from Pete. They don't even want to hear from the principal. They want to hear from their teacher. And so we've really looked at how we can not improve, that's not fair, how to make sure that parents feel like they're getting the feedback they need to support their student at home. And you can see we've adopted Parent Square, which allows parents, or it allows teachers to really talk back and forth with parents via text, and it's a safe way. They're not using their own cell phone number. And we've talked about required calls home from teacher. That's starred. It was a strategy that was discussed. We backed off of that because there's different ways that you can communicate, but we don't just want to tell people things. That's not what we're calling communication. We want to have an interaction, whether that's a conversation or whether that's text messaging, and there's different ways to have an interaction. And then we've talked about streamlined district communication tools. We've used a lot of different platforms. We really want to rally around Parent Square, and we've done that. The high school is a little bit behind in terms of this. There have been many platforms that have been used. We're piloting with a teacher right now at the high school with Parent Square, so that he is able to really articulate the benefits of it to the rest of the staff.
Could you expand a little bit on in the leading measures, the last one, the engagement list shared with principals every 6 weeks? What is
Yes,
that
I wish Heather
engagement
was
list?
here. So the engagement list has to do with Parent Square.
Okay.
And it's something that I don't understand super well, but what it shows is the number of interactions from teachers to families. And so there's a way to collate all of that data to show whether we are engaging, not just saying something, but engaging with families.
Okay. I think that'd be interesting. That's a new thing for
It's
us,
very
maybe at the end of cycle 2, just sort of give us whatever that baseline starts to be.
And Heather would have been our expert. You see, she's the one that's the lead on this, and that was actually something that she put in. She explained it to me. Okay. She had an emergency tonight. That's why she's not here.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on this graphic? Okay, next one then.
So this is, sound financial planning and decision-making. You can see, once again, looking to make sure our employees feel like they're heard. So I work in an organization where employees regularly share and exchange ideas. We improved this is our employee engagement survey that was given to us by Studer, and we improved from a 3.34 mean to a 3.92, hoping to get to 4.0. This is on a scale of 5. So we would like to get to 4.0 this year. And once again, it's the same strategies as before, right? New LCAP process, leadership teams, making sure people feel like they have a voice and they're a part of the decision-making process. And we're gonna hopefully round to see and give some pulse checks surveys. Pulse check survey is like a short 3, 4, 5 question survey to say, hey, how are you feeling? And it would be questions designed around this. This is an interesting one, the next one. Margin of error from prior year second interim budget to CBEDS enrollment. I think it's important to note that we are really trying in this district to have accurate projections. There are many places that under project to be safe. I've asked Austin to try to be right, not safe, be correct. And the two things that impact a budget and a multi-year projection are ADA percentage and enrollment. So we've broken down enrollment from TK 5, 6, 8, 9, 12 because you get different funding based on each of those levels. And I have asked him, and this is tough. I've asked him to be accurate in his enrollment projections at each of those levels. So if you look at 22, 23, he was within 13. We had 13 more students in TK5 than he projected at second interim. Okay, the actuals. He had 39 more students than were projected at 6-8, and he had 10 less in the high school. His ADA percentage, he projected it to be somewhere around 92%. He was within 1%. That's what that minus 0.892% means. He was within 1% of his projection. So he was very accurate. This last year, so his goals were to be within 10 for TK5. Middle school's harder because we get a lot of those kids coming back, so it's really hard to project. High school's a little harder as well. So we gave him 30 for middle school, 20 in high school, and we wanted him to be within 1% of our ADA projection. If you look at where we're at right now, we're at minus 40 for TK5, plus 61 at 6-8, and then minus 7. So pretty accurate for high school. And it's interesting, the TK5, we actually have roughly the right number of students that we projected. But interestingly enough, so, we're universally allowing 4-year-olds to come, right? So we were at roughly 50% last year, age eligible and non-age eligible. We expected that percentage to go to like 70% age eligible, right? But what happened is it went the other way. So we have almost 70% of students who are not age eligible. And so his projections in terms of the kids actually in the classrooms is pretty darn close. but the projection for the students we receive ADA for was off by 40, if that makes sense. Middle school, we were just wrong. More kids came than we anticipated, which is a good thing, but his projection was just off. 88 percentage we didn't have yet, but I know that we were running pretty close, but we're actually doing some work on 88 percentage now, but that's really the cycle one update. And again, I tried to give you some data that wasn't site specific, right? I could do this without having to rely on the sites and double dosing our students or our teachers. So that's why I have this here. But the takeaway, we're really trying to be accurate. We're holding ourselves accountable.
And help us understand for a second, clearly that removes the uncertainty, doubt, suspicion of numbers and budgets when we're in negotiations.
Yes, sir.
Probably is effective when we reach out to our community for support through another bond in the future to say we're fiscally on top of it. I like that the baseline in 22-23 was, I'm going to do the numbers in my head, which is always dangerous, 52. You were plus 42, and in the first cycle we're up plus 14 or whatever that is. So that's better than a negative in those. How is that important for you for program spending or budget adjustments? When in the day-to-day, when you and Austin and Brian as the assistant superintendent and HR who has to hire the people, what's the true impact of this? To be accurate, that's the piece I think that
I don't think programs are affected. I think it's generally, it's going to be class sizes are affected.
Okay.
But programs are programs. So we're going to hang our hat on the programs that we think are going to impact students positively. So students come, that doesn't change. We'd have to add seats and whatnot. But beyond that, I don't think there's an impact. This is an impact on our buildings, right? Mm-hmm. Making sure we have enough classrooms, class sizes. I think those are the really major effects of this. Right. But really, it's budget.
And good business. I mean, that's what I wanted to say is this is an aspect of one of these days we'll top out between $75 and $100 million school district. And this is running the business of something that has that magnitude. That's the point that I wanted to share. I think that that's valuable, even though it's kind of intangible in some ways. Yeah. Sure. Any other comments or questions about the finance piece here, Steph?
Yes. I wanted to hone in and understand a little bit more the preschool age difference. Does that mean that it's the younger 4-year-olds who we saw more of?
And they're funded. So it's not hitting the general fund because we have, actually, you guys just approved our funding for next year. So they're funded, but they were not funded by LCFF, which is what we're focused on here. Right. They were funded by the grant.
And do we think it's just because we got a younger batch of kids this year, or is there something else?
It was totally unanticipated. Yeah, we don't
did
know.
We see a decline we saw a decline though in the older 4-year-olds? That we were used to.
I talked to Allison about how many interdistrict transfers we have for TK, and it's 25.
Okay.
So, and they're mostly coming from Cloverdale, Santa Rosa, and Healdsburg.
So we have them coming in.
We have 25 interdistricts coming in.
Okay.
Yes, from other places.
At the
so I wondered if that was it. It's some of it, but it's not all of it.
Okay.
It's an interesting thing that none of us anticipated. And in 2 years, this won't be a conversation, right? So next year and then the following year, we're fully implemented. Everybody will be. But right now.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Was it because we were kind of early to adopt that we're getting the younger kids, whereas the other districts are not open to that age group? And then do we need to think about what's going to happen when they are?
It could be. Yeah, I think there are about 5 districts that are doing this. Rincon Valley's one. Wright School is one. I don't know some of the others, but I know those 2. But
okay. And then I had one, just a minor comment, similar to the comment I made earlier on the all staff connected and thriving. I don't know if you want to do this, but I think it would be interesting to look at data, student performance data in conjunction with staff satisfaction. Okay. Because I feel like if your students are performing well, I've heard that teachers feel good about that. So, if your product is performing well, I think that you probably feel pretty good. So,
and conversely,
so I'm interested in some of those, just thinking about them together.
Understood.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you very, very much for that. That was a great setup for before. Any public comment about this? We don't want to miss the chance. Okay, Paul, you have saved your ammo for this one, so we're going to start with you when you're ready. Unlike senators from Oklahoma, let's just ask, at what point would questions be good in the flow of your presentation? Why don't we?
So it's better to say this is your presentation.
Okay, yes.
So however you'd like to do it, I just do have some opening comments.
All right. Press on. Thank you very much. So, yeah, before we go, we are now on item 5.6, discussion of the 2022-23 district CASP scores. We've heard a great deal about ELA and math and things, and so thank you. This flows naturally, taking a deeper dive on scores that were just very recently released across the state. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so these, good evening, board president and trustees. So just to kind of remind everyone, so these are last year's scores. So this is more about conducting an autopsy versus doing a checkup, which Superintendent Decker talked about what we'll be doing with our RINSTAR scores. This is also not a deep dive. This is just as I get the data, you're going to get the data with the scores. You will get a deep dive, one, as the principals present their own scorecards. And then they have now added a mid-year LCAP review, which I'll be presenting our dashboard. And that's where I'll be breaking everything down by subgroup and then talking about looking at the money that we're spending towards our programs and looking at whether or not we're spending that money effectively to close the achievement gaps. So this really is just an overview, but what it is, what I really wanted to express, Pete, if you can click, is we're looking at percentages, but we all need to imagine that we're looking at children, because every single one of those percentage points is a child. And because we measure 3 through 8 and 11, the vast majority of those students are still in our district. So as we see these scores, we can talk about the mitigating factors that led to that scores with COVID and fire and all of the things. And we need to acknowledge that trauma that happened as a result of that. But we also need to acknowledge the moral imperative that we have to improve. Because these students, as you can see, the vast majority of them are demonstrating that they are not at or even near grade level. So there is a massive amount of work that we have to do, and I want to recognize that, and I want to thank the board for taking this time, because I know you're representatives of the community, and so we are asking for accountability. So we'll kind of just start with third grade. You can see that there is a massive need to kind of focus in both areas of math and language arts. And Mr. Corgono, I know that you had some comments about third grade.
I do have a comment about third grade. Third grade is not where learning how to read takes place. Unfortunately, that's just the first time they take the CASP. So what we really have to start looking at is why we have 70% of our students are not reading at grade level. I should, as a board member, should be able to walk into any grade and know that right now I'd be happy with 50%. I mean, this is just, it's more than shocking. I see these numbers and I almost can't believe them. Only 30% of third graders are meeting the standard. It's just shocking to me. And even the math scores, 3/4 of the kids aren't making the math scores here. But I'll talk to that later in 4th and 5th grade.
Let's go to 4th and 5th grade. As you can see, pattern continues going into 4th grade. And if you want to click onto 5th grade.
I just want to jump up there and I just want to scream. I mean, this is horrible. One of the things I know, having taught 4th grade, is that it's one of the foundation grades for success later on in mathematics. It's where you need to have your math facts down. You need to, the foundation is there. This is where fraction concepts come in. I'm appalled. I'm appalled at these scores, and I know we're not here today to talk about solutions and what's your plan going forward, but I just want to make it public that it's unacceptable. I want to be able to, like I said, as a board member, be able to walk into these classrooms and see that the kids can do math, they can read. I think those are pretty low bars, but I think we need to just really put our emphasis there. And these grades in particular, I know are foundational. Third for reading. Well, actually, it's before third. We need to start talking about what's happening TK through grade 2 and look deeper there. And then for math specifically, I know there's a huge shift after 5th grade. I'm tutoring kids now in 6th grade that have holes because of 5th and 4th grade. So I think that's really what I wanted to get off my chest. You used the term moral imperative, and I agree with that. We do. It's our moral responsibility to educate these kids and to have these kids at grade level. And frankly, even the superintendent, the goal of 50%, I mean, looking at those, it's good, but it's just a start, right? I mean, I think that's as much as I can throw out there today. I know you know what's going on, but I want the public to know that we are watching and we are going to hold you accountable.
And we'll now move into the middle grades. Oh, sorry.
Paul, I agree with what you're saying 100%. In this regard, since early, I've been a Windsor dude forever, right? I'm like a big Windsor cheerleader. And it used to really irritate me when I'd have people from other places going, oh, well, your scores are poor. Your kids are dumb. And it used to really rip me off because one, I'm coaching those kids and I know they're not dumb. They're very, very smart. And so I started digging around a lot of time. No, this is historical. This is 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And I'm going, why do we have smart kids and yet their test scores weren't, there was and I've said this before, but just in case somebody new at home's watching, and which is kind of getting to my point, and that is the kids didn't care if they take the test. Some kids would take the test and try to score loads because they thought it was funny, because there's no nexus between the kids taking the tests and them trying hard or doing their best. There's the Whiffam principle. There was what's in it for the kids. There's a 0 in it for the kids to work hard, focus on the test. There's no reward, there's no carrot, there's no attaboy, there's nothing but work, right? And so my solution has always been, and negatively received, there's got to be some way that we can reward the kids. And my early thought was, hey, if a kid takes a test in science or math, right, and they score 100 on that test, then why does that kid got to take that class? Just like in college, you can test out, right? There's got to be some incentive. Part of the reasons why, or be right before Jeremy got here, I wanted to brand the whole schools with all Jaguars, right? So that way we can get the town council to adopt Jaguars, our deal. Then that way we can get businesses in our town and say, hey, Billy, you get a 80 or 90 on your test, you come in, you get a free ice cream, you get a something. We get community buy-in of some sort. I don't know if those are the answers, but the point is, I don't necessarily believe that I believe these numbers are accurate of what's being recorded on the paper. I don't believe these numbers are accurate of where our students' comprehension really is. Because if they really are, then I'm even more whatever. So I think we have to do a couple things. And one is, I want to let everybody know at home, our staff, Brian, you and I have talked about this a few years ago, and I've seen steadily a much greater, I'm not an educator. I know there's a problem. I don't know how to fix that problem. That's not what I know how to do. I know how to fix other issues that we have in the district. I focus more on those. So with Paul and other educators and you guys as a team, I know that there's a focus. I know that we as a district know that there's an issue and that you guys are actually putting the work now behind it to get this resolved. So that's the two things I want people to take away from this. One, this is not lip service. This is really getting addressed. And two, I think that our students are in a better position than this looks like, but there's not a way to really capture it. I'm just telling you right now, Rich Carnation's a fifth grader. If I got to go take a test and I get nothing out of it, I could care less what that test score comes back at. The only reason why I would care is if I was going to get a whooping if my parents found out, well, my dad was an educator. So I had to do well on my test or try, because he always was able to figure out, he had friends. He could find out what I did or didn't do. So, but most kids aren't in that situation. So I think part of our equation in all this is we have to figure out what motivates the kids to really honestly reflect where they are.
So Rich, I'm going to resist, even though I want to so bad talk about strategies, because that's what our principals are going to do.
Sure.
But I also want to respectfully kind of push back to say we've validated these scores with RINSTAR.
Okay.
This is where our students are.
Okay.
And I think we need to accept that, and we need to own that, and we need to start right now, or actually months ago, improving that.
I just wanted to comment a little bit on what Rich said as well. I hope it didn't come across that I think our students are test scores, because I absolutely do not think our students are test scores. It's just
That our students are.
our students are not these numbers.
Oh, right.
Right? They're not these numbers. These are actual living, breathing individuals. But my point is, I need to be able to walk in there. And if this is true data, if this is real, then I want to walk in there and I don't want to see what's going on. Especially, like I said, and we don't want to talk about strategies right now. We will have that discussion another time. But just to make aware that I don't want to walk into a second grade class now that they're taking RINSTAR and they're not being able to read or not doing phonics, whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing. I want to be able to go in there and say, yeah, this feels good. The kids are engaged. They're doing this or doing that. That's my hope for the future.
Okay. So, and just to your point, Brent, I appreciate you clarifying that for me, because if these really are a snapshot of reality of where the kids are right now, this is even more scary for me, because these couple grades, these are my grandkids' grades. And it makes me wonder, which side of that spectrum they're on. And I kind of have at that 17%, the odds are in my favor that it's not doing so good. So, or you know what I mean? But anyhow, the point is, if these are accurate.
Where they are now, Rich.
Right.
And I think what you're saying is this is not their potential.
Oh,
And
no.
so there's absolutely the work that we're going to put in to get them to where their potential is.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you will truly see the students of Windsor. So this might be where they're scoring, but this is not where their potential stops. And so as Mr. Decker has put through, is like saying, like, these are the kids that we're going to move, is because we've absolutely identified as these kids are ready to move. And as the teachers have shown the students their RINSTAR scores, they are getting more invested in the process, because some of them are seeing their movement, some of them are seeing that they're regressing, and they're starting to ask questions about, well, how do I do this? And we've seen this both at Brooks in the middle school, that I've gotten feedback, not just from the principals, but from the teachers, that they're starting to have these discussions, and it is creating more of a culture of an interest about their performance.
Thanks.
And I think for both of you, I don't know RINSTAR when it became available, but for years we didn't ask the question. We looked at STAR tests or whatever, and there was a snapshot of kids taking tests in April and May, and we got those results in October, and we scratched our heads and never connected. Our kids are not those numbers. If that's the performance that we're getting in now RINSTAR, which we'll see when we get that data coming in, I'm a little bit familiar with it because I've gotten a snapshot of it. And so it's to say, as we were talking, we not put too much out of the bag, but we were talking the superintendent's evaluation in closed session. And one of the things we looked at is, this is the stuff that we need to deliver to the community. If that's not happening, we're all hands on deck to say, why is that? What are we doing about it? And we're asking the questions, we're getting the data. And I think, moving forward. And I appreciate very much the passion and, we got to have the messenger delivering the news to say, here's where we are, right? And there's no ducking that. And I think to your point, Rich, when we see the Ren Star, which again goes earlier than third grade to Paul's point, we'll start to see, well, what might we do differently? We have resources to invest. And if what we're doing isn't working, I think Brian and the principals and the superintendent are leaning towards, let's apply some new strategies, right? Identifying where we are is not where we want to be. Go ahead, Brian. I think we'll press on it.
Kind of moving us into the middle school. So you can see sixth grade, and then if you can kind of just watch kind of how they change to seventh grade. And then move them into eighth. So just to remind everyone, so eighth grade is the last consistent or consecutive year that they take the test, and then they don't, students do not take the test again until 11th grade. And so there's been some structural changes that I'm sure Ms. Buckman will speak to in terms of what we're doing with the math piece, because you're only taking an 11th grade, oftentimes we won't realize the changes that we've made and that we've done for multiple years until those students make it up to the 11th grade. English has stayed pretty consistent and it's close to what it was pre-COVID.
Some questions.
Yes.
First, thanks for the presentation. Hard data to deliver, so appreciate it. I wondered, is Cali included in the numbers for elementary and middle school, or is this only?
So this is pulled straight from Windsor Unified scores, breaking it down by grade.
Okay, so it's all of the.
So I'm moving to an all is all. Even though Cali is a charter in our district, I'm not counting those students any differently. You will get a complete Cali breakdown when Lydia comes to give her presentation. And you'll also be able to compare what our charter school is doing versus what our traditional schools are doing.
I was just curious if it was included in the data that you presented now. Okay, great. And then I was wondering, CASP, I just wanted to confirm when it's offered. Is that April that they take it?
April and May, yes.
April and May. Okay. And then Ren Star, we just got the first results.
We've done window 1, which would be our baseline, and then we've just completed window 2. And not to spoil, we didn't make much progress.
Okay.
Some sites.
Yeah, some sites
So
do.
how many windows are there in a year?
I believe it's 4.
On the school side.
yeah,
I think
some-
the high school's only doing 3 because they're using the finals and CASP as the 4th. But
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Sort of like quarters, but more than semester.
Yeah, and so when the students do Ren Star, is it a one-off thing that they're doing, or is it something that's also integrated into their routine, like they do? Like, is it just I'm wondering, what does that look like when a student does Ren Star?
So it's about a 25 to 30 minute test in each. You guys have taken it. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. We can talk about. Yeah, so we have a test in our class. Usually my English teacher comes in, or whoever your core teacher is, comes in, tells you for the day we're testing in each of our different areas. Yeah.
And do you test for so you do like language arts and math? Or is it different areas in high school?
It's language arts and math.
Okay.
It'll be a separate class.
Okay, so they just bring in the test. It's like on an iPad or a Chromebook or something, and then you spend about a half hour doing it?
Yeah, you just, we all have our school issued Chromebooks, so they tell us to bring those in and then we do them on them.
Okay, great, thanks.
I want to ask you a question. How many students do you think try to be honest? How many people do you think really are giving it the old heave-ho on the test?
The old heave-ho.
Well, I can only speak to the classes that I'm in, and I'm in the AP core and all of these higher level
I'm
classes.
guessing they're heave-hoing.
Most of the students in those classes do push themselves to do well because they get something out of those scores. But I don't know if you can speak more to the other. I don't know.
North Bay Met doesn't take
exactly.
Ren Star.
North Bay Met or?
No, we just took state testing, I think.
No, okay. But I also do know other students in my class, even in the AP classes, find it, at times don't push themselves as hard because of, they just want to go to lunch, they just want to leave. If they're going to stay over, they're not going to finish it. But for the most part, I believe if it's during the time and they have set time to do it, they're going to do their best.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I was just curious in like some of the mechanics, because I know there was a comment earlier about teachers haven't really been collecting data yet. And I know that if you don't have a culture of testing and it just being part of how you assess where things are, like I know we've kind of accepted that this is where students are, but I think there is something to what Rich said earlier. And I know you're saying, no, that's really where they are, but I think there's room for some pretty big progress in this year, period. But I'm nervous about that, because I think we've talked about a bunch of different things that we want to measure, a bunch of different things that matter. But at the end of the day, this is the core thing. If you take care of, if everyone's in the green, you don't really have the other issues.
So
Probably.
to your point, Stephanie, so when we had principals build their scorecards, I gave choice on many of those areas. How there were a few required items that they had to have on their scorecards. This was one of them. Everybody had to have CASP on their scorecards. Because to your point, it is the thing.
It really is the only thing in my mind. Look, we teach 7, 8, 9 cores, classes, this, that, and the rest. Back in the old days when I was, reading, writing, arithmetic, those are the 3 things that count. Everything else is added value in my mind. And so when I'm looking at this stuff, it scares the hell out of me. If you can't do a little math, and I don't want to harp it, you can't buy a gosh damn car or a house or any of the other things that you need to do to be normally in society and understand interest rates, just the basic things of living. And so the good news is we all are on the same team, and I feel really super confident that we have the right people in the right place at the right time to really make a fundamental shift and change and focus. Not only just here, our principals, the whole 9 yards. I think we're in a really period of time I'm going to call it a rich, and I don't mean name, I'm talking about rich, like high value period of really exceptional people that can help take our exceptional kids to a high level. So please don't mistake anything that I'm saying other than I'm sad that this is where we're starting, but I'm excited that we have people that know how to get us where we want our kids to get. So that's.
And we also know how much work you've done over the last year to get to this point, but we're only going to be at this particular point right now. So like in a year, if we're still seeing these scores, we're not in a good place at that point. Like it has to be different. So I'm a little bit nervous about that, but also to Rich's point, very confident that this is what you're working on and you're going to make things happen.
We are already starting the hard conversations. We're not seeing the progress we needed to see from window 1 to window 2 with RenStar. My fear is, as I've been in this district as a principal at multiple sites, is we just don't believe that the test is either valid. I've had teachers say, well, how can we possibly all take the same test because we teach different things? No, we teach the standards. So there does need to be kind of an agreement that the test is valid and that this is our measure for success. We need to share these scores with their students and tell them how they're progressing, and then actually have discussions with teachers need to have discussions with their colleagues about, okay, how is your improvement? Those of us who came out of the program improvement days from teaching know that there are systems, there are successful ways. You can go into some high poverty schools and you can raise scores by 30, 40, 50, 60% in just a couple of years, just by really dedicating to the strategies. And I'll be up front, when the principals first did their scorecards, there was a lot of corollary strategies. And I've said now redo them, and I want causal strategies. I want you to tell me exactly what you're doing to raise those scores or raise those. Yes, school dances can improve school climate for the kids that go to dances. That's a corollary effect. That's not a causal effect. So we're having them go through and now really identify what strategies, high leverage, that they're going to focus on, put their name on their scorecard and be measured on and accountable for to be able to raise those scores. Because if we don't do it, then I will be here 5 months from now with RINSTAR scores saying we've made no progress, and which means that we'll be back here in October of next year saying we've made no progress.
Paul, did you have a comment? And I have a closing comment.
I
think
just
we're done.
wanted just to, one more time, go to, Rich is kind of stuck on, these guys, are they really trying or not? Well, I just want to say from my experience in giving it in fourth grade, they tried. And I know they tried. We made a big deal about it at the school where we're at. We gave them snacks beforehand. It was like a celebration when they took the CAS test. It was a big deal. And the kids knew it was a big deal. They were excited about it. So I'm just saying from that point of view. 11th grade, a little different, I get it.
For sure.
But in the elementary school, you can make it a fun event and that the kids are invested in doing well. So I just wanted to.
And we look, because you mentioned it, we were at 30% in math and 26%, so 30% in English and 20% in math here in fourth grade. Were your scores up in Cloverdale around in that range of significantly below 50%?
I don't know where they are now.
Okay.
But Mr. Decker can talk to, when I was teaching fourth grade, they were nowhere near these numbers.
Okay.
I will say the fourth grade was an outlier because they really grabbed hold of the test, made it matter.
Thank you for that. So one point that I have when we hear about these in the future, one that's important to me is looking at our cohort diagonals. I remember seeing something.
Yep.
And so to that point, if the teaching wisdom and enthusiasm that went to that classroom teacher, right, which is really what you have through about fifth grade, and then 6, 7, 8, you have less of that. To watch that third grade cohort now through our 11th graders, if we got that, and to see how did they do, right? Is there a blip where there's more effective score producing teaching and maybe afterwards some unteaching or something happens of why did scores go down after a blip? So that's one thing. The other piece, when you all were talking, I hadn't thought about this before, but if we have, you mentioned D's and F's, or you mentioned D's and F's in ninth grade in math. And if we have, just using the 11th grade scores at 51% in ELA and 21, how do our letter grades are they correlating to, if we're evaluating on standards, why is there a disconnect? It seems as if heads are nodding. Why is that? And is that a place where we can reconcile to say, look, part of our scores need to be tied to, it just seems to me that is not a different silo and a different issue. And I don't know what the answer is, but it seems to me, I'm not hearing that if it's 21% proficiency at 11th graders, that again, for those 11th graders who are taking math, some aren't at that point, but are 80% of the students getting C minuses, D's and F's. If they're not, and I don't want them to,
right.
But if that's what 20% means, 20% meeting or exceeding the goal, we may want to look at that. And I've never thought about that until you all were talking to say, we do have a way to reinforce at the classroom level, at the things teachers see, what parents see rather than that. And I don't want to make it more challenging and difficult, but aligning the way that we are giving measurements may be something to think about. And I've never, all the time I've been hearing these scores, we had STAR before we had this one, I never thought in terms of, well, what do our grades show? Does that mean we're inflating grades? Are the grades disconnected? I don't know what the answer is, but it seems to me that might be a thing that we can look at, because that is something that I think teachers can apply. And I don't want to necessarily throw this at the teachers and students and parents and us and everybody in the community. But this is a serious thing that we talked again when we were talking with the superintendent in evaluations. When it was front and center when he was saying of all the priorities he has and things, this is one we got to do. And my answer is, do we need more money, more staff, different program? What is it that we need to apply here to get it to work? And I think Brian God bless you. I think you are the first one in a long time to really do the work and say it needs to have results. I don't want to get into it now, but that those targeted individuals, you can granularly go down and look to say, for those students who are there, where is that target-rich environment that we will start with those that we can raise up? Either they're, for whatever reasons, those would be the ones to do that. And I think that's exciting because, again, I've never heard that in 10 or 12 years of scores being low. We now have data and the capability and the intention and drive to approach it in that way. Right? Because I do think the tide raises all boats. But if we have inconsistencies between scores and grades, I think we need to scratch our heads a little bit about that. And
So you absolutely will be getting that report that you're asking for
Okay.
on the mid-cycle.
Yes.
Just a reminder, because of COVID, we only have 2 years
Right.
worth of cohort data. But as I was going through it, Cali 6th grade, math, huge bright spot. Like phenomenal. And so as we look at going, and it turns out Cali 6th grade is one teacher, so he gets to take all the credit for it. But we start to see somewhere those bright spots are, and then being able to apply those practices.
Good.
And yes, for those of us that survived the trauma of No Child Left Behind, some good did come out of it. And it's really the ability to look at every single child and say, what does this child need to succeed? And then figuring out a way to provide that for them.
And, Trustee Lopez isn't here, but I think that goes to frequently, she is our outspoken voice on equity, and we meet these children where they are. And that's a big effort when we have 5,000 of them. And I, for us and the rest of us, before Rich gets the last word on this one, appreciates, and the second to last word, because Stephanie's going to have a word.
And public comment.
And public comment.
Kelly's here.
And it's not even 8 o'clock. But, I just, it's so important and it's frustrating. And thank you, Paul, for your passion. And I think there was almost some restraint and a lid on when you started, because it's shocking. We're committed to make a change. We'd throw a handful of magic dust at it if we could. And it's not a magic dust kind of thing. It's a culture change. It's a shifting from a student perspective, the staff perspective, the administration perspective, I think all of which now are taking this seriously, which is good. How about Rich and then Stephanie?
Just real quick, and I'm not looking for an answer right now, but it's something to think about. It's something that just popped in my brain with this, and that is if the tests are the tests, I'm not disagreeing with that, and no one's going to convince me that not 100% of our kids are giving 100% of their effort in taking the test. So, but I have a thought that's in my mind is if the test is asking us about Spanish, right? That subject might be Spanish. As an example, my son was a missionary in Uruguay. He spoke Spanish down there. Another one was in Mexico. Both Spanish, but yet it was different. And so I'm wondering is the things that we're teaching, are they what is being tested? Or are they things that are similar to what's being tested, but not the same thing exactly? So are our kids learning the things that they're being tested on? Or are they learning things that are important, but not necessarily on the test? I'm not even sure if I'm asking.
You're talking power standards, Rich. So I think
I'm asking what?
when you're talking power standards, it's a term in education. That's what you're talking about.
Well, that's
So
a new one for me.
what tests are built upon.
not
And so
even an
that is
acronym.
some work we've done, but we've got more work to do. I think we're going to start to dive into all of our solutions that we're working on. I think I want to take the wind out of our principal sails because they will talk about it.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. This is actually for Pete. I was just thinking, we now have this successful staff appreciation program that we've piloted. What if we tie the appreciation of our teachers to who's having success in adopting these measurement techniques and making growth and recognize that?
That'd be great. I mean, I could coordinate with Brian and we could definitely put something together.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah.
I've done that before and it has backfired because you single out an individual teacher who does it great. They may feel good, but then there might be somebody else who feels like, well, I'm working really hard. Where's my kudos? So I've reflected upon that practice because I did it actually at one of our kickoffs and got some negative feedback. I think that if we're going to do that, we focus on grade levels versus individuals, teams. But I just need to say that because this is something that I've had to reflect upon because I have done exactly what you said.
Well, that's good feedback. So maybe, and this is just something to think about. Obviously, we don't have to you're in charge of the program and you have more expertise in knowing kind of how to manage this than I do. But if that's something that we're really valuing, if there's a way to incorporate recognizing that into that program, maybe it's a classified, a certificated employee and a grade level team that gets recognized for their efforts. That could be interesting.
Should we go
All right.
public? With that, any comments from the public? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Kelly Lister. I'm a parent, and I've got a kinder at Cali, and I have a fifth grader at Brooks.
And what do you do, Kelly?
I am the student support coordinator at my school in Rankin Valley. So the charts for my school, all the red kids, those are my kids. I'm their second. And I want to speak to you right now with my teacher hat on, because I'm hearing a lot about how do we beat the test and how do we make sure everybody's motivated. And that stuff is important. But that lead data up there, in my mind, that's lag data. That tells you you're lost. Now, if you're out hiking and you get yourself lost and you're with your family and you know you want to be up on that mountain ridge, but you're lost and you don't know, your family got you lost. You're there because you're lost and you got yourself lost. And you could sit around that campfire all day and night and scratch your head about how you got there. But if you don't have a good map to get you to the mountaintop, you're probably going to be messing around out there. What you need right now, while you're working on your 3-year plan, and I know this is the first year and you're just trying to get people not so afraid of the data, but I tell you, one of the most terrifying things is a teacher looking at data and going, I don't know how I got so lost. And I don't know, I'm supposed to get in a room with my colleagues and come up with something else. I don't know what that is. So I really recommend at this point, you get your hands, you pick some passionate people who can be trailblazers. You know, the trailblazers, they go and they chart the course through and get them working now. Turn your waiting room into a classroom for those people. Get them working now on what to actually do, because there's actual science and evidence. This is the lead data you need. You need the research and evidence-based practices for what to do at kindergarten and how to do it, what to do at first grade and how to do it. Every grade level, there is a different take on this. And there's massive amounts of research out there, and there's a big movement right now. So it's not hard to find because a lot of states are doing this work. Big states, whole states are doing this work. So it's pretty at our fingertips. I know you can't sign everybody up today because some people aren't ready for that. But if you could find a big cohort of people, then while everybody's starting to look at their data and starting to freak out, you're going to have some people in the room going, wait, no, I have an idea. Wait, I think I know, let's try this. And I came from the PI movement too. I was that first year principal in a first year PI school, and it scared all of us to death because we got ourselves there. We didn't know how to get out. And none of the PLC work, none of the stuff that the county was offering ever said to us, hey, you need to actually look at what and how you're teaching. There was lots of unpack the standards. Well, that's just like looking at the brochure for the mountaintop that you're trying to reach when you unpack the standards. That's not how do you get there. That's not how to train their little brains. So yeah, I'm so glad, Mr. Carnation, that you're talking about motivation. I think you're right. Nobody wants to try on something that they know already is too hard for them. Teachers won't, kids won't. And that test is darn hard, you guys. And if you want, you can get on there as public, you can get on there and print some of those questions out and look, it's hard. It's really hard. My kid struggles with it. She's not the kind of kid that blows anything off, and she struggles with it. So I think that if you could put that in your plan for this year, so that you're not hitting the third year where you're like, okay, everybody's ready. but then nobody knows, nobody's been trailblazing, nobody's charted the path yet. And now everybody's trying to look for the bright spot. How does this teacher do it? How does that teacher do it? It's super ineffective and inefficient to just look for that one teacher and try to learn from them. When you have a massive body of research and evidence out there that can tell you what actually works for most kids and most brains. That's all. Thank you so much for having this hard conversation tonight.
Kelly, will you say one other thing? So Kelly and I met, and I know that you sent an email to myself and Annette, and we talked about data culture and just some of the things that low-hanging fruit, if you will. So maybe just talk about it from a parent perspective.
Sure. Okay, parent hats on now. Went to the report card conference, didn't get a copy of the report card. Those don't come out until before winter break, and if I want, I can look it up online, but I won't get a paper copy. I don't get a paper copy of the STAR test, but I guess the district sent something out on Parent Square at the beginning of the year telling me how to access it. So now I'm gonna have to go back through and try to figure that out. I'm not getting a whole lot of communication about academic stuff at all, but I did get at the beginning of the school year a schedule. And I went through with my old PI audit hat on, and I looked at instructional minutes. And this is not including lunch. This is not including recess. This is the actual instructional minutes. Less than 50% of the instructional minutes is spent on reading, writing, and math. Those 3 R's that we know are crucial. So how is the rest of the time being spent? A lot of silent time, a lot of just, I mean, as somebody who actually teaches bell to bell, I got hardly any breaks. I'm looking at that going, well, man, this is a pretty lax day for my kid. And she wants to do well, because you can imagine both her parents are teachers, how important it is for her to do well in school. So it just kind of went like, okay, we got some rigor here that could really be worked on. It would be really valuable to me. I'm sorry that there's only 2 of us in the audience tonight too. I wonder though if some of those closed off campuses are hiding some of this. I wonder if not sending this kind of report card stuff home, test scores home, I wonder if that's about hiding out of fear, because we're scared that parents will look at this more closely and be mad, you know? And I feel for everybody working in there, but it's only fair to actually get them the information that they need. You get them the training, then you get them the high quality curriculum instruction that matches it, right? Then you build in the coaching and the implementation, then you look at the data. But if you just keep looking at the data, you're just measuring the hog, right? You know that old saying, measuring the hog, don't measure the hog, it's not gonna make it any fatter, something like that. We don't wanna keep measuring the hog unless we're actually doing something that can really fatten the hog, right? And so if everybody who's working on this is supposed to just sit in a room together and come up with that, that's tricky, because this is their knowledge, their background, and their efforts got us where we are.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah.
Kelly, don't be a stranger, please. Thank you for, seriously.
I'm gonna come every time Mr. Carnation invited me.
Good. In all seriousness, I wish the room was as full as it was filled when he had 160 staff members here before union negotiations. I would like to not talk now, but it's the first I ever heard that paper copies of report cards and some electronic link other than here's how you can look it up doesn't go. It strikes me that if these are important, we need to make maybe different decisions about that, but that'll be a conversation for a different day. So thank you very much for coming. And I mean it, don't be a stranger. You can have that seat. We'll say that's Kelly's seat. All right. Wow. Thank you so much. I am proud of our group that we have the hard conversations. That is something that we have done to stay both on the front end of innovation when things are good and not shying away. I don't think there are closed campuses, but it's an interesting thing that I will be ruminating on tonight and talking with the superintendent tomorrow to say, if a member of the public who cares enough to come and sit for 2 hours shares that that's maybe it, well, we have talked earlier today that, the perceptions are the reality, right? And we can either educate or change them or, address them or whatever. So thank you very much for that. Okay. With that, then, we are going to go past 5.6. We have a conversation on 5.7 about the December 14th meeting date and why that needs to be it with the 15-day education code provision. Superintendent Decker.
I mean, it's all there. I don't know if you want me to read the thing, but we have to do things within a certain time frame. Our December board date has to accommodate first interim, which has to be done within 2 weeks. Or I'm sorry, before December 15th, and this has to be done within, what is it, Jen, 10? 2 weeks. Yeah, so anyway, it's just to approve that this will be an organizational meeting.
So I know there was some correspondence from Rich that you're going to be on the road. I think we can certainly accommodate you appearing remotely. Okay, so there is the requirement that the data where you are needs to be posted on the agenda, and you can work with Jen well in advance of that. That would, when that is done, you are a full 100% participant voting, count as a quorum, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah, I just made a mistake. And I think when we did our calendar on the third week, I just auto did it on my schedule. And so when I was looking at when something came up, so I'm going to be out of town.
Right.
And I just kind of
I haven't heard anything from whether Malinelli was going to be gone. Anybody else have a problem being here in person? Because we have to have at least 3 of us to have the quorum in present. Okay, so the others will be here. There was somebody, there was a music performance or something that was on the 14th was.
Little Mermaids tonight.
No,
Tomorrow.
So Little Mermaid is tonight and tomorrow.
No, I was thinking on December 14th, middle school music. Okay. Did that get resolved or addressed? Okay, all right. Okay, I remembered there was something else because it did shift, Rich. We had to move it up because usually would not have been that late. Okay. Before we go to meeting adjournment, I know we have talked about future board agenda items. I will share that we talked, do we need to vote on? We do. Okay. Thank you. Yes, we need to vote. Thank you. We're voting and stuff. Gosh. So I'll take a motion then. It's probably by Stephanie Ahmad to start us.
I will make a motion.
Make our regular board meeting date December 14th, 2023.
second.
Second from Rich. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4012.
Is that a resolution, Jen, or just a vote?
Okay, thank you, Stephanie, for keeping us on track. Before we get to adjournment for sort of future board items, and we'll revisit this perhaps more robustly when we do the board reorganization at the December 14th meeting, but we did talk earlier about potentially adding a workshop next year on that first pillar. It came up in conjunction with conversations about the superintendent's evaluation. And that first pillar would be the student engagement, some like CAS scores and the reports about the empathy interviews and those sort of things. So figuring out when that might need to go, probably certainly after the first of the year. And I don't know where we are, but let's maybe, Jen, get those sort of placeholder things that we've covered here through calendar year 2023, so that the board in the organizational meeting on December 14th can look to see how we might populate some of these second, we reserve a number of second meetings in some of the months to figure out what we might want to do. So any other comments, questions for the good of the order before we adjourn today? I want to thank my good friends to our left. Thank you. It was so apropos when I sort of pulled that with all the empathy interview stuff that I'm aware that you've been doing and been hearing about, because that's so much about what we're about, right? Delivering this solution for our students. And Kelly, thank you for waiting the 2 hours to come and give us your heartfelt, and please do not be a stranger and come back. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll make the motion and second by Paul. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you so much. We're adjourned at 8:16. Thank you.